Hello and welcome, I'm LinkingX2 and today we're going over the drafts in the Hunger Life and T1 series. It's the last game of the regular split for both sides and most likely last time they meet up before summer. Hunger Life has locked in the third place and will face Nangxing in the playoffs while T1 faces Dragon Ace. This means the game might be meaningless, the teams still want to try to end the split on a high note as both can write a 5-game win streak into the future. Starting with the first game though, here in the ban phase on Hunger Life sides, nothing too surprising, typical LCK bans, quite questionable. We could argue somewhat for the Gnar, as Kana is a quite potent Gnar player, but again, these bans do not really make sense considering that these champions are not perfect and have a lot of weaknesses that can be exploited. On the other side, the Renekton falls in the same category, and I don't really recall Morgan being such an astonishing player that Kana needs to ban this out, otherwise he has no chance, so this is also questionable. These two on the other side, Solution obviously a very strong pick for Chovy to try to 1v9 carry. It's not a perfect pick that can be blinded or anything, but it's at least some variance taken away. The Sion here for Hunger Life, a very potent pick, as it's probably Chovy's favorite pick. He said something like that in an interview once, and obviously can go in the top lane and for Morgan help him survive against Kana. You notice that the Seraphine, Hecarim and the Lilia, three champions that are considered very powerful at the moment, are not being banned. Also the Thresh and the Senna, which are usually bans at the moment and especially against T1. So with nearly all OPs open, we can get a good showing why these champions are so strong. Hunger Life starting here with the Hecarim first pick, which is questionable. Seraphine is way more powerful, and here especially against T1 with Faker, the Seraphine is even more higher in priority as T1 has opened their eyes and have seen the light that is the Seraphine pick. So it's not perfect. Personally, Hecarim, he works straightforward and is easy to play obviously. So maybe for someone like Johan, who is a more inexperienced player, it's something good in such a more pressured situation against T1. But it's still against T1. This more linear pick might not work out as well as against poorer teams with worse coordination. So overall this is not good. Obviously the Seraphine Senna rotation is the holy rotation that you can do at the moment, in my opinion. If you have these two on your side and just get some tanks in your comp, you nearly can't lose the game. So this is obviously super strong. Then considering the players that are going to pilot the champions, obviously Seraphine and Senna are flex picks that could go in support, mid, top, whatever. For T1, obviously, or sadly that is not the case. Seraphine will 100% go for Faker and Senna 100% for Teddy, as Keria or Kana have not shown to have these champions in their arsenal and have not played them in solo queue as well. But that's not a bad thing, as Faker and Teddy are obviously outstanding on these picks respectively. So here T1 already getting a huge lead in the draft. Hunger Life continuing with the hard engage idea, which, to be fair, you don't outrange T1's duo here already, so you have to go for the hard engage version, as you also obviously don't outscale, right? That's also not something you can bank on. So you have to go for a bit faster of a game, right? 1 to 2 item power spikes, try to hard engage and then snowball the game. That's a here Hunger Life's plan. Obviously these champions do spike onto items quite potently, and they have the engage and disruption to maybe pick off these champions who are, to be fair, rather immobile. But obviously even our Orianna is being hard outranged by T1 here. So they're going for this one style, which is quite risky to say the least. But if you already let the enemy team get these two, you're already kind of a pinch. Come Kench here to close out the first half of 41. So many others might have wished for other fasting champions near the Senna. For example, some suggest Set or Cho'Gath. Even Mundo I've heard, which is a bit more random. But considering like Cho'Gath being something that is LS created, I think the Senna Cho'Gath obviously is super strong, but you don't need this, and I think Tahm Kench has a lot of value here in terms of protection. So obviously if T1 were robots or like, were super strong or like, don't make any mistakes, I think then the Cho'Gath is the like, super optimal play here, because yeah, Cho'Gath can be flexed, he's good in the Gragas in the support matchup and in the top lane matchup, and you might even want to go mid lane Cho'Gath, which I don't really like at the moment. Especially considering here you give Chovy a super free lane in that case. And I think, yeah, the Tahm Kench, not only because Keria is super strong on him, I think he got like 2 MVPs with Tahm Kench. It's just super straightforward to protect your immobile carries, and as these carries are super important for your comp and comp identity, yeah, keeping them alive with like a bailout Tahm Kench W is, I think, the way to go. Personally, I think, yeah, you always have to calculate in some mistakes being made in terms of positioning. So I always advocate for frontlining instead of these more zoning champions, as it's just easier to play. And yeah, obviously it's not the perfect and optimal way, but it's the practical and realistic way in my opinion, at least. In the bans we see now jungle being targeted, as T1 and Hecarim here elected has no jungler picked, and remember it's still 11.5, so yeah, some jungle buffs for some champions have not come in yet. But yeah, the Graves obviously would be kinda good here against Hecarim and Orianna, also with the Seraphine in the mid lane. It works quite well, he's getting bolstered up quite nicely, so I think that's good. Olaf, obviously, we remember times of Yuumi Olaf. Yeah, that's not going to happen straight up, but Seraphine Senna can do similar things with him. These like, lifesteal bruisers, like Olaf, like Aatrox, a bit of Volibear, yeah, they work really well with the extra healing coming in. So yeah, these bans, they might seem a bit silly, but they're quite good here. On the other side, we want finally getting rid of the Thresh, which is something that I might wanted to see here. Yes, they go for this hard engage identity, but picking these champions here, yes, you don't get banned out there, but personally, Varus Thresh rotation would have been really good into the Senna and the Seraphine, because yeah, Varus is a very strong champion into the Senna, and yeah, Thresh overall is a highly valued support, and with his W actually helping the Varus as well. Also, for Deft, personally, yes, he has like some 90% win rate. The Jinx, yeah. Obviously, Senna and Seraphine are super strong in the late game, but Jinx, she's fairly great as well, and considering the comfort Deft has with her, that would also be an option. So yeah, B bans here again, very strong. Picking the Volibear, yes, it's 11.5, so yeah, it might not be a jungle Volibear, as such it's somewhat of a flex. Volibear into a potential top lane Gragas, also quite good. Then we see Ezreal Yuumi. So Ezreal Yuumi has a statistically terrible win rate. It was shown on screen, it has only a 33% win rate, which, yeah, that's terrible. Ezreal also into the Senna, already not good. And yeah, I think if you go for the scaling war, I think Senna Tahm Kench is just way more stronger in the scaling than Ezreal Yuumi. It's, yeah, not as great. Hecarim with the Yuumi, obviously, super, he's set out to do quite a bit in the mid game. Ezreal also as a more independent AD carry, without the Yuumi's help. Is safer, right? But you have to consider here the damage on Hunger Life's comp. So Hecarim, he has to be the front line and deal the damage, as he is the most bolstered up champion. But that's not really how Hecarim works in the current meta, right? You go tank and especially on 11.5, you want to deal the base damage with your Q. Orianna and Ezreal also not great into the tanks that T1 already has and might already or might continue to elect. So these tanks T1 has and will get are not only super tanky against Hunger Life's lack of tank shredding DPS, but they're also constantly healed up. So T1's tanks are nearly immortal, and Hunger Life, they can't front to back with their comp. So yeah, they continue with the rocket into T1's backline, but engaging into a Seraphine and Senna. If it doesn't work out completely perfect, it's always a recipe for disaster. The Aatrox here lastly for Kana. So Aatrox into Gragas. It's a poor matchup in my personal opinion. Gragas is a great neutralizer, and even if he's not playing too well, he will always be useful as he's going for the tanky build. And with the Barmy Cinder and Bramble Vest, he most likely will outtrade the Aatrox even. So in the 1v1 this is not super great, but I guess Kana is just better, so he thinks he can play the lane out nicely. In the skirmishes, Volibear and Aatrox obviously are very, very potent, and will control the topside jungle. Nice add-on. Also, the base damage of these tankier champions for T1. It's not a Scion or something like that, which obviously is banned, but it's not a super hard tank like Ornn, for example. These champions do have a nice amount of base damage. So Seraphine and Senna, who do lack damage in the earlier stages, can have the damage support here, so they don't have to surrender every fight. Also nice add-on with Aatrox is his ultimate, obviously. So his ultimate does increase healing from all sources, so Senna and Seraphine heals are more valuable for him. He's a frontliner, so some people might want to get something else here, more healing, or like something that can punish the Gragas in terms of a Gangplank, as a Karma maybe. But I return to my point, getting a bit more frontlining in is always great because it makes the comp just so much easier to play. And again, I think T1 really has a good comp here. Aatrox with his movement speed from his ultimate and still having the mobility with his E in comparison to a Set maybe, can act as a nice frontliner and extender for Seraphine and Senna spells. So you could argue if it's a computer that spaces correctly, you might argue for something different. But I personally really think the Aatrox works here aligned with their comp. So T1 with the huge comp advantage, I mean it's like nearly a perfect comp. You could discuss a few picks here, but I think it's nearly the best that you could get. And while Hunger Life's comp is not bad, I mean, if you look at the international playoffs, champions like Gragas, especially Orianna and Hecarim, are highly contested and highly valued, even though obviously it is mostly on the 11.6 patch, which is the playoff patch, even for the LCK. Still, these champions are not getting nerfed, so, right? That means Hunger Life's comp, they do have something, but in the critical parts they are lacking, and considering that T1 got all the OPs, all comfort, it's just a clean and huge draft edge for T1 here in game number 1. And that was reflected in the game win. Obviously here T1 winning the first game. It was a Goomer Stomp. Hunger Life was smashed into the ground. It was a massive player gap around the rift, especially in the bot lane. Ezreal Yuumi ended up the game with 0-13-0, in contrast to like Teddy and Keria with 8-1-28 something. So a huge diff. Then Hunger Life obviously often called just Chovy, right? Because Chovy is hard carrying, even though Deft has been a bit better in the second half. Even Chovy, he couldn't do a lot. Again, Orianna is not really a champion set out to 1v9, and especially here against T1's comp, a shotgun mage like Orianna can't do nothing. So he was also gapped by his champion and by comp, and Faker also played the lane and the matchup out quite nicely. As usual, Faker is an equalizer in the matchup, and then he's roaming around helping his team. So while he's not smashing lane, he's amplifying his teammates, and that not only with the Seraphine but also as playstyle. So T1 shows up and proves once again that they are a force to be reckoned with, and Hanwha Life has to find some edges, and especially in the bot lane have to step up their game for the next game to even have a slight chance. So going into that next game, we start obviously with the bans here for T1. We continue with the Illusion ban against Chovy. We add also the Renekton ban against Morgan. Again, not really sure about this one. The Jinx here against Deft. It was not banned in game number 1, and I think here for game number 2 it makes a lot of sense. So after the shellacking Hanwha Life received, probably they went with, we need to get a better matchup for Deft, as the bot lane was obviously a huge problem. T1's comp was able to Goomba stomp so hard because Teddy got so fat on the scaling champion that is Senna, that it was over just a blink of an eye. So T1 expects here to see the Jinx on the enemy side, and with Deft being super proficient on the champion, just taking it away and denying that chance is already great. So bans again, a bit strange, but that's good. On the other side, we see 2 jungle bans, which if we think Hecarim and the Udyr as well as the Lilia are the 3 S tier or like super good junglers at the moment, this means that they force out a Lilia first pick kinda. And then with the Seraphine ban as well, it's a bit strange because you trade Lilia for what? What do you get? If like Seraphine is banned, you could get Senna, but Senna's not a champion Deft plays. So it's a bit questionable that you force T1 to get the best jungler in the game and then don't have an equal response. So these bans, while on paper they might look good, they end up forcing unfavorable results. Obviously I don't say leave Seraphine open for T1 to first pick, that would be foolish, so that ban is okay. But if you ban 2 junglers and only 3 junglers are really good in the meta, you're doing something wrong. Again, Lilia here being first picked. The Senna could have been the choice here, but I prefer the Lilia, again as these junglers are banned. And there are some counters for Senna, while I still believe in Teddy's and especially Keria's ability in the bot lane to work around that and still perform. It's an unnecessary risk. You can Senna here. Again, I don't think Deft will ever play it. So the Lilia is just the better option. We see Hanwha Life with a bit of a confusion here, Nidalee into the Lilia. Maybe that was the plan in considering of this jungle matchup here. Or maybe they were baiting like Senna first pick for T1 and getting Lilia themselves. Maybe that was their idea. Anyway, Nidalee into Lilia. Obviously it's poor man's Lilia. Sion here already first pick. Nidalee Sion. That is a top lane duo that can surprisingly work well, especially if Sion gets level 6. And we see Sion sometimes take Unseal Spellbook with the Ignite. There's a lot of damage in the early stages that can come out. But it's getting a Sion ahead or getting a Nidalee ahead is not really doing anything really for you. And considering that Morgan and Johan are not really the key players of Hanwha Life, this rotation again is quite questionable. And it's not like Sion, yes, he's super tanky, but he's not infallible. There are options to counter him. So that is not super clean. I agree with the jungle pickup here, right? You match the jungle pick so you don't reveal too much. But again, like if Deft was capable of playing Senna, this is might something that you want to get here. Again, yes, the what's his name? The virus does exist, but you have to show something, right? You can only match one matchup, and you have to show another. So you have to risk at least something, and I guess the Senna would have been quite nice. On the other side, Gnar and Victor. So T1 here is not going for some Senna and Thresh pickup. That would have been nice, right? Keria's Thresh obviously very good. Senna and Thresh are also a great lane, even though the Thresh obviously is not the best fasting champion. Thresh with this can help the Senna to be a bit more safer. So maybe it's not super optimal, but at least it's something potent. And again, T1 often prioritizes comfort, which is the reason for the Gnar pickup here, obviously. Gnar into Sion, he has a free game, yes, with Nidalee and the Sion level 6, as I mentioned. If Kana is not careful, he can get quite a bit set behind, and his pressure is not 100% guaranteed. Yes, that is the case, but for Kana it's a lot of comfort. He has the safer lane, so even here he can play late back if he wants to. The Victor here into the Sion, it's a bit iffy. So obviously Victor immobile, Sion can ult him, but it's more than that. Victor has a lot of DPS, so he's not an Orianna that can't deal with Sion, right? He has DPS, he usually goes for the Liandry's. If we expect Lilia to go for the Moonstuff build here, as Gnar and Victor both have AP ratios, and if you have AP mid jungle, you don't want to hard focus on more AP to make an enemy mid laner here get the super AP, super MR items, right? At 11.5, Verdant Barrier does still exist. So yeah, the Victor here into the Sion is nice, or it's kinda nice, but Sion obviously against against so much AAP, he can itemize quite effectively. So it's not 100% awesome, it's still very good. Still here T1, they match the top lane, and again, as so often, they blind pick mid lane for Faker. He is often the one here on B3 who sacrifices his lane matchup to help the top laners or the bot lane here in the second rotation. Tristana is the answer here, so quite nice for Hunger Life, Tristana and Sion. Obviously multi-flexes, Tristana can go either mid or bot, and the Sion can either go top lane or mid lane. So yeah, that's at least something. Tristana into Victor. In the early stages it's a good matchup. Later on, obviously Victor, he gets outranged by Tristana, but he can do fairly fine with his E, just outrange, kill the minion wave. In terms of AD carriers, right? So we have the Lucian band, we have the Jinx band. So Tristana is high in priority, especially considering you can't pick Kai'Sa in Tristana. It's not good. It's not good. So yeah, they already have secured a potential great bot lane matchup if Teddy should be so inclined to pick the Kai'Sa. Coming to the next band phase, the Thresh and Kalista bands here for Hunger Life. So they don't assume a Kai'Sa pick, so they don't ban it, or they actually want the Kai'Sa pick. Probably that's it. So yeah, the Kalista here would be decent into Tristana, especially considering it's Teddy's Kalista, and the Thresh, again, Thresh and Aphelios does exist, and you just don't want to see that. So yeah, that's great. The Senna ban for themselves makes absolutely no sense. So you want actually to pick Senna here, like Senna Gragas, Senna Cho'Gath, Senna Set against Sion. That all could work. Even maybe Senna Rel just to get the Rel, but yeah. So the Senna ban here makes not so much sense in my personal opinion. So anyway, and the Rakan, it's not perfect, but I would argue that T1 wants to eliminate the variance of Rakan engages. So I guess that's okay. It's not perfect, but it goes in the same category as tank picks instead of like frontline range picks, right? It's just easier to play against. But this means Rel gets through, which is a bit questionable, right? We didn't saw Rel in the first game as well. Yeah, what's going on here? Rel is actually super strong, in my personal opinion, excluding Senna fasting stuff. One of the, if not the strongest support at the moment. Her engages are just super oppressive, so fast, and yeah. So that's a great pickup. Tristana Rel, if that should be the bot lane matchup, we don't know yet. Is obviously super oppressive and super strong, especially on the earlier stages. Their level 1, level 2 is quite potent. T1 answering with the Kai'Sa Gragas. Gragas into Rel. It's not Alistar, but he also can cancel her dashes. Similar story through the Tristana and the Nidalee, obviously. So he has some interactions here that are quite nice. Kai'Sa, I don't want to talk about it. Kai'Sa into Rel is bad. Kai'Sa into Tristana is bad. Kai'Sa into Sion is also not optimal. So that makes absolutely no sense. So Victor is already kinda outranged by Tristana. Lilia obviously as well. So another pick that is outranged by Tristana it's just terrible. Also a terrible pick is the Ryze here last pick. So Ryze into Victor. Yes, in the split push he can be quite strong, but should even the time come for split push, Victor is strong enough to just either wave and be fine. So even that makes little sense. Then Gnar and Victor, they have two options to put in the side lane against Ryze. Ryze can only itemize for one really. So yeah, then Ryze handshakes short range with Kai'Sa. So that means it's a knife fight here between these two. And considering all the slows and zone control that T1 has, Ryze can't really enter any fight. Same with Nidalee, by the way, she can only Q at all stages of the game. She has never the ability to go in. So yeah, this champion is really not doing anything. And it's only on Tristana for Hanwha to save their comp, right? If Tristana is dead or not there in the fight, they have no ability to match T1. They have just so much terrain and zone control. Like, for example, Victor W, Gragas Q, and the R threat, right? Kana with... So Mega Gnar is something, right? Mega Gnar is one entirely different thing. And even the small Gnar with his Q slow can be quite a hassle to like slow these short range champions down and then catch them up. And Lilia, well, depends on her build, right? But her, what is it? Her E. Yeah. This, yeah. Her E. So T1 has a lot of zone control. Victor even with his R. So they have so much to deny Ryze entry into the fights. And yeah, the Nidalee obviously, it's a bad champion. She can't do anything regardless, but even more so in this setup here. So T1, the draft advantage they have, it's not as high as it was in game number 1, right? Hanwha has the answer of Tristana, which is set out to carry, right? Tristana has the advantage in the lane here, especially with the Rel. They have a strong 2v2, they have the safer bot side. They in theory have the Sion that can be ignored top lane. So yeah, they can focus all their attention on the mid lane. Ryze with his ultimate can also roam easier, which yeah, Chovy is not roaming and Faker's making sure of that, but in theory, right? So they have everything set out to help Deft carry this one. Yeah, but again, it's all on Deft. And if we remember game number 1, Deft and Vista got completely shellacked by Teddy Keria. Now they have to prove themselves. And sadly, yeah, they didn't. The bot lane again was completely gapped. Tristana was irrelevant after a few seconds. Everything else on the map, so Ryze was not getting any leads on Victor. Obviously, again, I mentioned Victor can just either wave at some point. And even on the first levels, Chovy was electing to go tier first, which means that he loses all trades on the first few waves, which is not massive. Again, it doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but that at least would give him some priority to help his jungler a bit more. And yeah, talking about the jungler, Nidalee got all the kills for them, which is super sad. Again, Tristana needed all the gold, and yeah, Nidalee is not doing anything in general, and in this game again, especially. On the other side, Kaz, again, he was a bit invisible in both games, but it's not because he played poorly or he was not doing anything. It's just that obviously Teddy and Keria were completely massive in the game and were like pushing their lead super hard. Similar stories to Faker, but he was constantly making sure that Chovy had to answer waves in the mid lane. And yeah, with his positioning as well, he was securing space for his team to do something. Again, the T1 comp here has the issue of their range disadvantage, especially the Kai'Sa. but due to their good space control and to be honest, if you get so far ahead, then it's also not as important, right? Any champion is good if they're fed, besides Nidalee or Renekton Kappa. So yeah, talking about top lane with the Renekton, the Gnar into the Sion. As Sion didn't get any help, Kana was doing quite well. Obviously, lead that Gnar gets in terms of CS against the Sion is on paper completely meaningless because yeah, Sion doesn't need as much gold and he will be more effective than Gnar in late game teamfights in the vast majority of cases, as he doesn't have to do so much, so there's not much variance in terms of gameplay. But the way Kana was using his lead was with invades into the red side jungle here, into the jungle. He was getting vision in these key areas here, which yeah, made the Nidalee even more useless. And he was stealing jungle camps, he was the first to rotate. That is how you use Gnar, right? Gnar is not a champion that should just get the CS lead and that's it. Yeah, the CS lead doesn't get you anything. Your items are more expensive, so in terms of item stats, you're actually not winning by like any margin against the tank in that case. But using the Gnar to pressure the mid lane, pressure the jungle, that is the way you play Gnar in this case, right? So Kana obviously also having a great game. You don't have to mention the bot lane. Teddy and Keria got the MVPs in game number 1 and 2 respectively. Teddy also with his 400 games, entering the top 20, top 15 LCK. And overall, T1 at both games, clean game. The draft again were quite good. This one, you could argue that especially Kaiser pick is completely trolling, and they could have gone for the Senna and could have gone for a similar style of game number 1. But in my opinion, I think they were really avoiding the Senna. So either they think it's not as strong on blue side as on red side, which in terms of bot lane like terrain you could argue for. But I think as this game is a bit more on the meaningless side, maybe they want to try something more out, right? We know T1 is really experimental, so that's something. But yeah, that's it for today. T1 completely 2-0 shellacking Angwa Live. Game number 2 was not as one-sided in terms of the scoreboard, but yeah, they were strangling them out. They were using the clean macro, which was enabled by their team comp, right? Again, they have so much zone control, they control jungle territories super easily with their champions. And yeah, which makes it easier to set up vision, which makes it easier to control spaces. So they were completely starving Hunger Life out of resources, getting easy gold leads, extending them even further. And yeah, just overall clean gameplay in terms of individual and team performance, macro. And again, the drafts were so much better. Drafting for late game scaling and team fighting. Yeah, just overall very great and clean performance. T1 really looking super scary here in the LCK, especially considering that Down1 Kia was dropping games against Genji. They were even losing 2-1, I think, and against KT they only won 2-1, and KT is not even in playoffs. They are 7th, I think. So yeah, Down1 Kia not looking as great. A bit shaky, you might want to say. And yeah, the red beast of T1, they're looking to pounce. Their first target will be Dragon X, that they have played Live Sandbox, which I do not know the result at the moment. So depending on that, Dragon X might look a bit better than they looked in the T1 series, where they were 2-0. So I still don't think Dragon X has any hope here. T1 should be able to get that match win as well. Mango Life on the other side against Nongshing. Nongshing, they have their ups and downs, but I think in the end, Mango Life, Chovy looked still quite good, but Deft and Vista, they have to get together. They were just outclassed. I don't think there was exceptionally bad play. So it's just that any tiny mistake, any tiny misstep they were doing, Keria was super aggressive to pounce, and that's just it in terms of the bot lane. So I think against the Nongshing bot lane of Dokdan, and I don't know. They should be super fine, so Hanwha Life should be able to get the win against Nongshing. I think Nongshing is by far the weakest team in the playoffs, even weaker than Dragon X. And then Dangwon, Kia, and Genji, they will be the next opponents for these two. Obviously, Dangwon, Kia can choose their opponent for the semifinals, and I strongly believe they will choose Hanwha Life, right? Why should you choose T1 to play them in the semifinals? Yeah, that makes a little sense. So we will most likely see Dangwon, Kia versus Hanwha Life. And yeah, it will be super exciting to see Chovy versus ShowMaker in that case. But again, I believe, yeah, it will be a bit of a team gap, especially considering that Khan has looked clean and that Canyon is still Canyon. So Johan and Morgan will have a hard time there. And considering the bot lane, Deft and Ghost, there's a bit of a rivalry going on there. So that will be exciting to watch if Deft can, over the course of the next week, step up this game. But I sure think Dangwon Kia will have that and will move on to the finals. For the next one, Genji and T1 in that potential scenario. Again, Genji got 2-0 by T1, which was the beginning of T1's 5 series win streak. So I think we can expect a similar result, especially considering that T1 has actually improved their performance, that's the word, improved their performance over the course of this 5-game win streak, right? Especially on the individual play and the team play, they looked way better. Yes, there were some drafts that were quite strange again against the Africa Freaks series here. There was one draft that was quite int, but in terms of gameplay, they sure have stepped up, which is to be expected. This was a quite fresh roster, right? They have not played together a lot, even at all. So only these 5 series, they obviously increase in synergy and macro and team call and overall the communication, which is the main focus of T1, if we can believe what the head coach Danny told us. Okay, now I'm going to shut up. I hope you had a great time here with me, talking about the picks and bans here. Obviously, I will cover the T1 playoffs games, and maybe even a bit more of that. I have to look. But that's it for today. I hope you have a great time, and we will see each other in the future. Stay safe.